A couple of weeks ago, Prestige Reef made a video about 5 corals he would never buy again, and it's a video I love so much I wanted to make my own version, and it starts right now. First up are expensive Gonioporas. Now I've tried gonies in every single tank I've ever owned, and I have never been able to keep them. They tend to follow the same pattern whereby they are fine at first, then slowly start to recede and shrivel up, and eventually they disappear. Now I've been given various theories as to why gonies don't do well in my tanks. The most likely is that I tend to set my tanks up for SPS and gonies don't do well because they get too much light. And others have suggested that I try dosing manganese to see if that will help. But whatever's causing it, every time I buy one of these I end up regretting it. In the shops they look absolutely stunning and I just can't help myself. But because they're a coral that's been on trend for quite a while now, they tend to be very expensive for very small frags, which means I end up spending a small fortune on a frag that's not likely to make it. Now I have decided to give this one last go, and currently the Goni is doing really well in my low light frag tank. But if this one doesn't make it, I promise I'll never do it again. And to nobody's surprise, next up is pulsing xenia. Pulsing xenia is of course often seen as a perfect beginner coral because they're hardy, cheap to buy and readily available in most shops. And frankly they're so gorgeous and mesmerising that I wouldn't blame you if you go out and buy one even after reading all the bad reviews. I could genuinely sit and watch pulsing xenia for longer than any other coral I've ever kept. But of course the stuff grows very fast and spreads everywhere. Now the last time I tried xenia, I tried isolating it on an island, but that still didn't work and I found little bits popping up elsewhere on my rockscape. And it was even growing out of control on the rock I'd managed to isolate it on, and that's because it is really difficult to remove. It's a really slimy, slippery coral, so grabbing hold of it and pulling it off your rockwork, even with a pair of pliers, is very difficult indeed. So I ended up leaving it to do its own thing, which meant it started to take over my tank. First on the podium is my nemesis, wild collected SPS corals. Now on the weekend when I go into any local fish shop, there is always a fine array of Indonesian and Australian wild caught SPS corals. And they're just so pretty and colourful that I can't help myself from buying one. However, every single time I buy a wild collected SPS coral, it ends up dying. And in my current tank, which has been running for 4 years, I have precisely 0 wild SPS corals. Now I've never been able to work out quite what I'm doing wrong with wild SPS because some people do have success with them. But the fact of the matter is that in my experience, tank grown SPS frags are far more hardy than wild collected, and for that reason I now steer well clear of them. And the runner up on my list of corals I regret buying are zoas, or more specifically, some zoas. Now I absolutely love zoas, and they're one coral that I find do really well in an SPS dominated tank. They don't seem to mind high flow, and in my tanks I've often found that they show their best colours under strong lighting that you'd normally associate with SPS corals. And while most zoas grow pretty quickly in my tank, I don't mind that, except when they take the mick. And for whatever reason, certain types of zoas seem to grow a lot quicker than others in my tank. For example, this rock here was designed to be a zoa garden with various different colours. However, one particular colony of zoas, my laser lemons, has since completely taken over and wiped out all the other zoas in its path. I also have these fake lime chili zoas, which I've been trying to get rid of for some while. And these zoas in particular seem to be super fast growers because they catch food out of the water column. None of my other zoas do this, but every single time I feed my tank, my fake lime chilies go shrimp hunting. And the worst part of all of this is that I can never work out in advance which zoas are likely to go crazy, and usually by the time you find out, it's too late. And the single coral I regret buying more than any other is plating montipora. Now plating montipora are a really good place to start if you want to dip your toe into the SPS water. They're fast growing and come in a wide range of colours, and the scrolling plating pattern is absolutely awesome. And on top of that, for an SPS coral they're pretty easy to keep. But while montipora are often described as being peaceful and not aggressive, that much is only true when they're not in touching distance of other corals. And in my tank, my plating Tropic Thunder Monty spreads across the rockwork until it comes into contact with one of my Aquapora, then it does battle until it engulfs and kills it. And as if that's not bad enough, most plating Monties are also encrusting, so even if you stick them on the edge of your rockwork, they are still likely to grow back and spread over your rock. And in my tank that is now Aquapora dominated, all my plating Monties do is spread where I don't want them to and try to kill my Aquapora. And I regret adding Tropic Thunder Monty so much that I've thought on a number of occasions of stripping my entire tank down and starting again just to get rid of it. So those are the top 5 corals I regret buying most, but I'd love to know about your experiences, so let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for next week. And until next time, happy reefing.